Hey everyone, it's Mojaxx back in the DJ City UK lab. Today reviewing the Traktor Kontrol S5 from Native Instruments. Now this is their latest all-in-one controller. It follows closely in the footsteps of the Kontrol S8 that came out last year and the Kontrol D2 which came out earlier this year, which is the sort of individual deck controller. It does two decks at once, but it's really designed to be used in a pair. Now you can check out my review on DJcityTV of that. I had a mixed reaction to the D2, it's fair to say. Some stuff I love and some stuff just doesn't work for me. But the S8, I've had this now for the best part of a year and it's fantastic. I use it loads. You know, it's a great bit of hardware. It's massive and it's heavy for sure. You know, this is not a portable bit of kit. I have taken it out to a number of gigs and worked with it there, but it's a pain, you know, it's so big and heavy. However, it's got a load of features on there. You've got the screens, you've got control of 4 effects units, you've got the nice pads, you've got the touch strips, full mixer section, and it's a proper standalone mixer, so you can run turntables or CD players or whatever into the mixer section. You can use it for DVS control as well with turntables hooked up. You know, it's definitely a beast, but it's a nicely performing beast. It does the business very nicely. You can see why big DJs like Pete Tong and Carl Cox have gone for the S8 because there's so much power there, especially when you get extra sources hooked up as well. It's rocking and rolling. Now the S5 is a more stripped down, more portable take on that kind of form factor. So we've got the 2 decks, the screens, the big pads, the touch strips, the 4 channels. What we don't have is any kind of standalone mixer functionality. So we've only got 2 inputs on there. We've got a mic input and an auxiliary input as well. Now these will work if you turn unplug from the computer. You can still run the aux control and you've got a basic level of volume control over that with the controller itself. Now that means of course you can't really do DVS with it. Now you kind of can. Now I get very confused about Traktor's licensing and how it all works, but I've got Traktor Scratch Pro on my computer because I've used it with various DVS hardware from Native Instruments, and I plugged in CDJ with the Traktor CD, plugged that in and run it into the aux input on here, and I was able to do scratch control with that. So if you've got a turntable with a line output, or if you've got a CDJ and you've got a Traktor Scratch license, you could in theory use one deck alongside the S5, which is kind of interesting. I mean in practice you could, because it works. I tried it, it worked for me. But it's definitely not designed for that. This is designed for those DJs who've definitely gone for that touch strip control, probably syncing, which is cool. If you're playing on hardware like this, I don't see why you wouldn't want to sync. Trying to deal with the individual BPM selections and stuff is just a nightmare. So this is designed for that sync workflow, and that's cool if that's your bag. So you're missing the DVS functionality, you're missing a bunch of faders and knobs around the screens for that remix deck control and stems deck control. Stems kind of works all right actually, I'm quite surprised. You have got individual level control over the stem just by holding down the bottom button under each one, and then you can adjust that. You can also, because it's in toggle mode right now, you can have a hold version, so you don't have to toggle it, you can just hold them down. You can do as many as you like and do the volume for each one, or just do the volume for 2 at once, or 1 on its own, whatever you want to do. That's pretty sweet. And also the filter as well. So I've got the filter now on all 4 stems, up and down. It's definitely not as intuitive as with the S8. It's got dedicated controls for these functions. It's much better from that point of view. But if you are the kind of person who's using a few stems files in your sets, that's fine. Not a problem at all. Where we do get an issue is with remix decks, because if you're a heavy remix deck user, this isn't going to cut it. By comparison with the S8 or the D2, those missing faders and so on, they're very limiting for remix deck control. So if you're looking at that, definitely look at one of the other 2 instead. It's the same with the Kontrol S4. That had, again, very limited remix deck controls, not ideal at all. But yeah, for the stems, it's cool. And I kind of like the fact that you can like punch in each stem at a time. So I can just punch in this drum line. I haven't got to worry about, slamming the fader to the top. And just punch in the bits that I want. It's a different way of working from the S8, but it's cool. I do kind of dig it. One thing to note in terms of these browse and loop controls, these are the standard Traktor controls that we have, which is all great, but On the S5, they are basically symmetrical. So we've got browse on the left, loop on the right on both decks. On the S8, it's actually mirror image, so the browse is on the outside on each side. If you're buying an S5, I'm suspecting you probably don't own an S8, so it won't freak you out, but it did freak me out slightly. I kept going for the wrong one, but it's worth bearing in mind. If anything, I kind of prefer the symmetrical layout. It feels like two distinct decks rather than this like all-in-one thing. It's just worth noting, I think. In terms of effects, you are limited to only 2 effects controls, so 2 lots of effects units. Now you can again see on the screen all the actual parameters. That's really nice to be able to see those, and you can choose different ones as well, so you can go through the list and set up different ones that you want to choose. And you can set post fader, send, insert, and so on. You can set a snapshot. All of your effects controls can be done from this one unit, but it's only for 2 effects units. You haven't got effects units 3 and 4 on the unit there. I'm a little bit disappointed they haven't carried over the awesome feet that you got on the D2, the flip out feet, because they bring it up to the height of a turntable. And all right, you're not using this with DVS, but still, most booths are designed to be a certain height. I like to have that extra height on the unit, and it's a shame they haven't just carried those across, because I thought they were a really nicely designed sort of innovation that came on the D2. One of the things I really liked about it. So we need to talk about cost in this thing. Well, it's basically $800 street price, $799. That's as opposed to $1,200 for the S8 and $500 each for the D2s. Now, in comparison, you've got to kind of disregard that pricing on the D2s because you do need a pair, so that's $1,000. Then you're gonna have to find yourself an interface or a mixer, or all-in-one mixer and interface and so on. They're your real high roller kind of item. The S8 is definitely your more advanced controller. There's more controls on here. You've got the standalone mixer functionality, the DVS and so on, but it's massive, it's huge. It's gonna take a lot for a lot of people to get this out into clubs and actually use it in venues. The S5 though is far more portable, far more usable in a smaller space. You're definitely gonna get away with it. And yeah, it's compromised. You don't have as many controls for remix decks and so on, but you've still got the lovely screens. You've still got plenty of control with your cue points and your looping and so on. One thing with the looping, I would point out, you haven't got the loop mode for the pads that you do have on the S8, which is a bit of a disappointment. So you can't do the flux mode and the very quick kind of auto loop rolls that you could with that, which is a bit of a shame, but they've only got so many modes that they can put on it, I guess. Physically it's just not going to fit. But otherwise, yeah, you don't really pay a lot of price for that smaller size. It is more compact, but without losing too much. I'm just looking at the S8 now. I'm trying to see really what's missing, and it's really just this center kind of section for the remix decks and stems decks. So again, if you're not massively into those, if you don't use remix decks a lot, and stems is still to be proven really as a format. It hasn't really taken off in the mainstream sort of sense. So right now you might only have a few stems files. So does it really matter how the stems functionality works? Possibly not. But either way, it's a great bit of kit, well put together, as all Native Instruments stuff is. Value-wise, I think it's right up there, certainly compared with its own kind of brethren, but even compared with what else is out there on the market as well. I think it's a great deal and well worth looking at. Thank you very much for watching today. Make sure you subscribe for all our future tips, tricks and product reviews. I'll see you soon.